Welcome back to Brave Ideas. I'm your host, Caleb Parker, and we're back at GCUC 50th edition for this final episode in New York City. One of the themes that came up repeatedly throughout the season and across the GCUC content is change. New deal structures, new partnerships, new operating models. But sometimes the most valuable lesson comes from someone who didn't follow the crowd. My guest today is Chiko Abengowe, founder and CEO of Perfect Offices. While much of the industry has moved towards management agreements, hybrid leases, and increasingly complex structures, Chiko has continued building through disciplined lease deals, operational focus, and a deep understanding of his customer. And the results speak for themselves. In this conversation, we discuss why simplicity can be a competitive advantage, how Chiko evaluates lease opportunities, the importance of understanding both customers and landlords, why private offices remain such a powerful product and profitable, and what disciplined growth actually looks like in practice. This conversation cuts through a lot of the industry noise and gets back to the fundamentals of building a sustainable flex business. If you're a missionary focused on impact, but not sure how to make the numbers stack up, this episode is for you. So without further ado, let's head over and have a chat with Chiko. Welcome to Brave Ideas, Chiko.
Thanks for having me.
It's my last episode at GCUC and my first ever GCUC America over here, J Suites in Manhattan. Got a shout out to Liz Elam for putting this on. It's been a great conference. You brought several of your team members here. How have you found GCUC?
I think GCUC is awesome, especially, just Liz. She's an amazing person, an amazing connector. This whole experience is just awesome. Get a chance to meet really cool people, learn from different operators in terms of just like how they run their business, different things that they experience that I haven't experienced that I would like to implement with our operations. I think it's amazing.
I agree. And it's one of the reasons that we do this podcast is we share the same belief that Liz does, that a rising tide lifts all ships. And we want to share best practice and get everybody sharing insights and learning from each other. One of the things that has happened in the last, 6 years in our industry is many operators like yourself, legacy traditionally have been on a lease model. And they've grown through that model. They've shifted and gone into management agreements, hybrid leases. We talked earlier today about profit sharing leases, but not you. You guys have stayed in your lane, focused, and grown through the lease model. Why have you stayed on lease and not gone into partnership model with landlords like everybody else?
I mean, I think for us, it's just like keeping it simple, and it's what's worked for us. I didn't even know these other models existed, to be honest with you. When we first started, I started with the lease. So that's kind of what I know. And it's worked for us. So
when it comes to doing a lease deal with a landlord, what have you learned from the first deal that you structured to now that you would advise anybody else going down that path that say, don't do this or make sure you do that?
So we've done over 26 different deals, lease deals. Each of them are different. Each landlord emphasizes on different points and different things. It's like dating, every person has something unique to them that you have to either bring to the table for the deal to work. What I've learned is that you have to kind of learn what the landlord is comfortable with and also know what you want to accomplish before you can make the deal pretty much work. Some landlords want a long-term tenant. Some landlords want a tenant that pays rent. Some landlords want a tenant with less traffic. Some landlords don't mind a tenant with more traffic. So it's almost understanding what the landlord wants and making sure that what you bring to the table kind of matches that too, and vice versa. We don't deal with every landlord. There's some requirements that we have based on the clients that we're serving. And those landlords have to meet that need. Like one of the things that we like is landlords that have ample parking, because a lot of our tenants service different clients and they like to be able to have their clients pull up and park without having to pay or no hassle.
In the last episode we recorded today, Kirill was talking about doing landlord deals. And one of the things that he said, number one, the very first thing you need to make sure is that you and the landlord like each other. Have you done any deals with a landlord you didn't like?
Yes, because I liked the deal.
So there's a low rent, or it was incentives, it was a great location.
I did a deal with the landlord that I didn't like in the beginning, but the landlord ended up liking us. Let's put it this way. The landlord didn't like us, which made me not like the landlord. But I liked the deal enough that I was willing to put that to the side.
And you ended up liking each other in the end.
Well, he ended up liking us.
You still don't like him.
Well, I mean, I never not liked him. I just, because he didn't like us, I didn't care too much for him, but I did like the deal enough to move forward. Yeah, so the landlord, I think when we were first initially getting started, he had a quote unquote Class A building, but it was in the suburbs. And he didn't like the fact that we also catered to not just business professionals, but massage therapists or lash techs or nail techs or whatever, other entrepreneurs. So when the tenants would sign the lease, what they'll do, they'll put their address,
Sure.
our address. They'll use that to have stuff delivered to them. So one day he pulls it up and he notices that one of the massage therapists had used the address, and he just felt like that didn't make his building stand out as a Class A building, and his creditors actually reached out to him about it. So he reached out to me about it, and he was like, "Hey, I really don't like this," and we just kind of went back and forth. And this was before.
Was this over email or was it a phone call?
It was phone calls, it was emails, it was everything. What happened is, during that process, that was around the same time that COVID happened. The landlord had other tenants in there, including Walmart. Actually, Walmart had a headquarters in that building. So what happened was, during that process, a lot of his tenants leave, including Walmart, and we stayed. We didn't ask for any rent abatement. We didn't miss any rent for a period of 2 years. He just fell in love. And he would call and check on us each month. He's like, "Hey, look, are you guys going anywhere? Is everything okay?" And I'm like, "Hey, all is well." And we'll, send our check. So he ends up buying another building right down the street. And before he bought that building, he just kept calling me every single day. He's like, "Hey, look, do you want a whole entire floor?" Eventually, we end up doing a second deal with him. But he loves us. If you call him today, he'll tell you like any building he buys, he always tells me, any building I buy, I'm calling you all first.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a great testament to building a relationship with somebody, but it's also a great testament to our industry. We thrive when the economy is good, and we thrive when the economy is not good.
I agree.
Companies are growing. They need agility to be flexible. When they're downsizing, they need the same agility. Not the same necessarily in traditional office space, where it's a lot more static versus the dynamic dynamicism we have. I think when it comes to turning that landlord around, are you using them now as a case study, as a testimonial when you're trying to do deals with other landlords?
Not necessarily, but if a situation comes up where a landlord is pushing back on a deal because they're not comfortable with our business model, that's a story that we can tell. I think our business model and our industry really excels in downturn markets, because during COVID, I think we were at 8 locations, and within that 2 years period, we went from 8 locations to 16 locations. And mind you, these locations that we have are 15,000 to 30,000 square feet, where you have 50 to about 100 private offices.
So during the COVID years, you doubled your portfolio.
Yes, we did.
That's phenomenal. Another testament, another feather in the cap of Flex, because so many times landlords look down on our industry as maybe devaluing their building for various reasons,
right,
notwithstanding the one you described a moment ago. In reality, when you flip it, we're actually providing a ton of value to their building.
We are.
In that respect.
Yeah.
The industry, we're known for supporting a diverse mix of customers. Historically, we've had a lot of, it was very much a private office business. In the UK, we call it serviced office. Here it's executive suites. Co-working has come onto the scene in the last decade or so. And we've had this sort of bifurcation between private offices and open plan co-working. In either case, you have this diverse mix of customers. In London, there's a company called TradeStars. And what they do is they say they support the new entrepreneurs. The new entrepreneurs are your TikTok stars, your social media selling folks, your Instagram influencers. And they've created basically an executive suite for that type of customer. I don't know if it's right to say this, but I think you support the traditional entrepreneurs, still with a diverse mix of folks, in an executive suite style. You haven't gone down the co-working path that a lot of our friendly competitors have. Why?
Again, I think it's just like what I know and how we started and what works for us. We cater to the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur has a lot of different industries that they pursue. And we cater to the entrepreneur that wants a private office and other services. So there might be an entrepreneur that's not interested in a private office, but they want a membership. They can get a membership from us. But majority of our business, about 80% of our business, is that private office tenant that's interested in designing their office the way they want their office, having a private office space, carrying out their business, whatever their business may be. We cater to the entrepreneur, not necessarily a specific market or a specific demographic. That was my background. When I started my first business, I just wanted something affordable. Just give me a space that's affordable and let me do what I do. And that's basically what we do.
When you come to these conferences and you meet people that are really heavy on the open plan, the co-working, the memberships, maybe no private offices sometimes, what are you thinking?
I'm thinking it's just the other side of the coin. It's still part of the same industry. And that just might be what they're interested in. There's a lot of opportunity missed if an individual is not also catering to the private office client.
With your permission,
Sure.
I'd like to take that same answer and flip it to challenge you.
Okay.
So does that mean that you're missing on the opportunity to cater to people who want the co-working?
Possibly, but the way we're kind of structured is that a lot of our locations, we still offer co-working memberships. So you have the private desk component. We also have the membership component. We also have event spaces or conference rooms and flex offices. So we do cater to some level of co-working, but majority of our business is definitely private offices.
So you're offering all the products. It's just a matter of where you lean and what the spatial allocation looks like. You're heavy on private offices,
Yes.
but you have the other products.
Yes.
If you see that the demand is growing in those other areas, you'd probably reconfigure to support that.
Of course.
Okay. Makes sense. Okay. We've talked about mercenary versus missionary. And
Okay.
if we talk about some of the other folks that are really leaning on the co-working side, there's a lot of people who really, and we need these people in our industry, who really love to support a certain type of entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And so they create these spaces, maybe 5,000 square feet, 1,000 square feet, 10,000, whatever. And it's like open plan and they do events and stuff like that, right?
Right.
But then we have the mercenary that is all about underwriting cash flow. And so, and what I've seen is oftentimes the missionary without having the mercenary isn't having strong cash flow and doesn't create a sustainable business. But the mercenary without the missionary creates a nice cash flow recurring business with a low vibe to it. And I'm going to just maybe say Regis out loud. Is that okay? I don't think Liz will make me cut that out. So what's your view on the missionary versus mercenary?
If you want to make money, I mean, you got to lean towards knowing your numbers, for sure. I think you want to lean towards the middle. If you focus too much on the missionary and then there's no money coming in, you die anyway because it's a business. You have employees, you have clients. Your employees are not working for free. You get what I'm saying? So you need to focus on that number and the mercenary part of it in order to bring it to a sustainable point that you can incorporate that missionary aspect to your business pretty much.
So for your brand, when you're looking at new acquisition opportunities, what is there a minimum footprint that you need to make it profitable?
The bigger, the better. It allows you to be able to have more opportunities for more clients. Smaller locations don't work as well because of the costs associated with it. Now, again, if everything is free, if I'm getting the coffee for free, if I'm getting employees for free, obviously, but you're not, there's expenses to everything and the expenses just keep going up. So obviously that's something you have to take into consideration.
Just on this last point here around the profitability and the size, to your point, if you have a 10,000 square foot space and a 20,000 square foot space, you're probably going to have the same overheads, but you're going to double your revenue opportunity. For us, we don't touch anything unless it's 20,000 square feet.
Okay.
I think some others have figured out a way to do it at 10 to 12, or sometimes 15,000 square feet. When you're looking at going and acquiring new spaces, is this a cookie cutter for you? Are you basically saying, here's my footprint, here's my staffing model, here's my customer experience, here's my spatial allocation to private offices to open plan, copy, paste, copy, paste?
Yeah, I think a little bit of that is going on. And to answer your question specifically, I like to stick with at least 15,000 square feet. Now, we have locations that are 13,000, 12,000, but 15,000 gives us at least that 50 to 60 private offices where we can allocate costs accordingly based on revenue that we anticipate when we get to about 85%, 90% rent collection. 15,000, I would say, but the more, the better. For example, we have a location that's 30,000 square feet and we have about 120 private offices. I think that location is like a sweet spot because we cover all of our expenses. We make the type of profit that we need to make, and the location runs smooth. So I would say, like you said, the 20,000 to 30,000 square feet is a sweet spot. But I understand if you're a new operator, that's scary. 20,000 square feet.
It's a risk.
Where you got to pay maybe what, $60,000 to $80,000 a month in rent. Yeah, that seems scary.
Especially if you're in a lease model and you're not shifting the risk to the landlord.
Exactly.
So when you're doing those deals, when you're doing the underwriting, and I appreciate there's not one answer, but I'm going to force you to give me one.
Yeah.
What is the one thing that has to be true in the underwriting operationally that's going to make or break it?
When it comes to a location, I look at the rental expense for the location, right? And then I look at how many offices that I want at the location. If my minimum price, right, meets the total expense of that rental obligation, then I know how it could possibly perform. Let's say there's a location and it's 15,000 square feet and it has 50 private offices, right? If I look at the rents, let's say the rents are $25,000, right? If I take that $25,000 and divide it by 50 offices, what do I get? I don't know off the top of my head.
Well,
but
let's make up a hand.
But that number is relatively closer to the bottom of what our average rents are. Okay. And if that number works for me, I'm comfortable with the deal because I know how much more we can really scale that up with virtual mail and with flex offices, with a whole bunch of other things that we have that are secret sauce to our business to help us to be able to make a profit.
So when you're looking at the space, and I just want to make sure I understand this, when you look at it, do you do a full 10-year pro forma to say, okay, here's my ramp up period, here's how much CapEx needs to go into it, OpEx, working capital, and then over the next 18 months it's going to take me to get to this occupancy, and then in year 5 I'm going to make this much per square foot?
It's not that detailed.
Okay.
For me, it's not.
No.
For me, it's more of like the basic number, right? And sometimes I'll do this, but it's not that serious. But sometimes what I'll do, I'll take, because we sign like maybe a 7-year, 10-year deal. So I'll take the rent number 10 years later, right?
Okay.
Take that number and then add about whatever profit margin that I want. So it could be like maybe 20,000 or 30,000. Take that number, divide it by the total offices, and that's where I start with my pricing. So from day one, I'm already profitable, and day one, I'm already profitable for 10 years from now.
So how do you know that? Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
You know what your pricing needs to be to make it profitable.
Correct.
How do you know that the market will pay that price to make sure that you're going to be profitable?
I work off of our costs.
Okay.
And then because our cost is so, in the market, we already know we're more on the affordable side, right? So I know that whatever we charge is still going to be half of what, let's say, a big operator like Regis is charging. Let me give you an example. So most of our offices are about 150 square feet to 250 square feet. For something like that at a Regis, it's probably going to be anywhere between 1,500 plus, okay? In our space, it's probably around $500 to $1,000. For us, as long as our expenses kind of works out, we can be anywhere. I mean, we haven't had a market that we've been in that didn't work. Now, some locations take a little bit longer to ramp up. Some locations, it might take us 15 to 18 months to ramp up. And some locations, our fastest location we opened up a location where we literally filled up 50 of the offices in one day. So
It's a
it's
good day.
different. Yeah. So, and it's not something that it's not, we always try to obviously expect that it's going to take us some time, but sometimes you get a little bit lucky and then it fills up a lot faster, which then your model, it's a lot,
Yeah.
yeah, better.
And in the Regis example, they're probably going to quote that price as like 2 workstations.
Right.
And they're going to say 1,500. It's really $750 per workstation.
Uh-huh.
But I understand you're not approaching it that way.
No. So we don't rent based on how many desks that you can fit in there or how many individuals. So we just rent you the office space because sometimes an individual might just use 150 square feet or 250 square feet for themselves, or they might have a team of 4 in there, but we charge per office, not necessarily how per an individual in the office.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm asking these questions
Yeah.
because it's different than what I know,
Right.
and I think it's important to understand that. And it doesn't mean that your way or my way is any better,
Of
or
course.
not even my way. But what Regis charges and what you charge is not saying one's better, but it's important for everybody here to see all the different ways of doing things, right?
Right.
And clearly, you're successful. You doubled your portfolio in that time period.
Hey, everybody. I'm breaking into the podcast. My name is Liz Elam. I'm the founder of Juicy. And I wanted to break in and let you know that there's other ways to be connected to Juicy. So you can join Juicy membership if you go to juicy.co, which is gcuc.co. On membership, you can find a really great deal right now. We're running a summer series. And in July, we're in the middle of it. And our second speaker is going to be on at the end of July. So definitely look at joining membership, which is also a great way to get discounts to juicy events in live, in person, in real life, which is where we all want to be right now, is in real life. That is the future. In September, we're going to be in beautiful Cape Town, Africa, doing Juicy Africa for the first time. Antoinette is working really hard on that event. Head over to africa.juicy.co for more information and to get your tickets. Then in October, we're back in London, which is always such a great event. London is such an amazing city. It's so vibrant. The scene is incredible. You should definitely consider attending. You can get information there on uk.juicy.co. Emily is working her tail off, and it's going to be epic as always. And if that wasn't enough, we recently announced that Juicy USA 2027 is in one of my favorite cities in America, the vibrant, the amazing Miami. Early birds are up. They're never going to be this cheap again. So also look at juicy.co for a link to Miami early bird tickets. That's the only place you'll find those tickets. Anyway, we're over here busy thinking of new and exciting ways to educate you guys and inspire you guys. Hope you're enjoying the podcast. We had such a great time at Juicy's 50th with Caleb and Brave, and now I'm going to turn you back to it.
We've had Flip Howard from Lucid on here
Good
talking
guy.
about, great guy, yep, talking about his premium offering in the brand he's created. You purposely not gone the premium route because you're supporting your customers, which is a recurring theme also because know who you serve and create a brand around that, which you've done.
Yes.
At what point did you decide, I'm going to be this brand, we're not going after the premium customer, we're supporting this entrepreneur? What drove that decision for you?
Well, my personal experience. So you got to understand, when I got out of college, I worked for a staffing company for 2 years, right? And then left that staffing company, worked for another staffing company for 2 years. And at the age of 26, I decided I wanted to start my own business. So I was 26 years old, didn't really have any money, had $1,000 in my bank account, right? But I had just quit my job at 26, but I wanted to start my own business. So I realized that in order to start my business and the license that I was trying to get, I needed a physical address. I didn't know anything about virtual mail. I didn't know anything about that. So I was thinking I need a physical office space in order to get my nurse staffing license that I needed because I was starting a staffing agency. So went around to different offices, different places, and encountered a problem that I didn't expect. So one of the buildings, They were like, hey, you want an office building? How long have you been in business? I said, well, I just quit my job last week. So I haven't been in business for a long time. They were like, no, sorry, we can't rent an office to you. Other place that I went to, they were like, okay, well, you want to rent an office? Like, what's your credit background and all of this stuff? And I was like, well, I actually don't even have a credit card. And they were like, no. And then another place I went to that was a little bit more affordable, and they were charging like maybe $400, $500 a month. Walked in there, didn't like the way it looked, didn't like the way it smelled, and I think I probably saw a cockroach. So I was like, probably not me, right? So in that process of looking for something that was affordable but professional and also had a flexible lease, I didn't really find anything. But I did come across the place that I rented, which worked out for me because the landlord at the time, based on the situation they were going through, they didn't ask me for how long I've been in business. They didn't ask me for my credit history. All they needed was a security deposit of $750. And guess what? I had that. So I gave them that. I didn't know where the next money was going to come from, but they didn't ask me either. So it worked out for me. So I signed the lease, right? I start my business, my staffing company. In less than 2 years, I scale it to $1 million, right? Because the office space was taken care of for me, and it gave me that flexibility that I can go out and actually do the business. So for me, in the process of that, I helped the landlord actually fill up the space with my friends because he was having a hard time filling the space. I was like, how? This is amazing. In that process, I decided that I'm going to start this type of business, and I'm going to cater to entrepreneurs like myself because they're out there. They're looking for something affordable. They're looking for something professional, and they're looking for a lease that's flexible that allows them to be able to navigate whether their business is scaling or not scaling. That's when I knew that these are the customers that I can serve because that was my experience.
Authenticity.
Yeah.
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 I
So
love that.
yeah. And so with that, we've been able to just kind of continue to scale, and 25 locations now, 1,700 plus private offices, and we're still rolling.
So you are a missionary. Supporting other entrepreneurs.
I guess you could say that, but the numbers are important.
There you go. So you are a missionary and a mercenary.
Let's go.
No, I love it. And actually, I love following your Instagram. You are an entrepreneur, and you are living authentically and sharing your story. I assume, because it inspires me, you're inspiring a lot of other people, whether it's your quotes that I love, your workout videos, or general business advice. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you using Instagram, though, to grow and to grow your top of funnel? Is that sort of a way you're getting customers?
Yeah, I think Instagram is one of the channels that we use to get customers. A lot of our clients or future clients follow us, interact with us, and people want to buy from people they relate to, and I think that helps us to be authentic. I'm authentic. I try to be authentic on social media platforms, and it helps because folks reach out to us constantly on my personal page, and then also the company and the company's page.
Yeah, it's in our industry, often I see the founders of companies of your size and growing. They might have a social media presence, but they're not really active. The brand might be active, but the brand isn't really in touch with their customer. They're just kind of selling flexible desks and Wi-Fi and good coffee.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's elevated to promoting events, but not inspiration. You're selling inspiration. You're selling success. And I think that's fantastic. Do you think more people in co-working need to be getting their founders involved authentically in social media?
Absolutely. I think they're missing out on customers that they can be getting. And I think sometimes the reason why maybe they may do that is because a lot of times in business or even in life, right? We're trying to wait till that moment where we can make music and forgetting that making noise is just as important. You get what I'm saying? So if you make noise, you're going to attract attention. And if you attract enough attention, customers that pay, you get to a point where you can hire or set up the things that you need in order to make music. So for me, it's just about making noise. Make noise, attract the customers that you need, let them pay, and then get to a point where it's more synchronized, it's more beautiful, it's more perfectly sounding.
Well-placed brand
That's right.
There you go. Yeah, attention is a currency, and I think you're 100% right. It fills the top of the funnel, and you just nurture that funnel ultimately. But when it comes to social media, is there something that you have to avoid doing? Is there anything that people are getting wrong that you would say that they need to avoid?
I would say there's customers on social media. If you're not participating, you are missing out. And then you're leaving those customers to me, and I'm going to get them.
So we have a question from the audience, Shai from Jersey City. She's an operator. She has 11,500 square feet, and she wants to expand her footprint into new locations. She's facing some objections from landlords who don't want co-working in their building. You had a landlord that didn't like you, they didn't want you, but you've turned that around. What advice would you give her in having conversations when she faces these objections?
Yeah, I would say find out exactly what the landlord's objection is. Once you know what the landlord's objection is, then you know whether you can change that or not. Because there's just certain objections that you might not be able to change. Let's say, for example, if you're in a building and the landlord only wants 10% co-working, well, if you have 10% of the space, there's no way you're going to be able to change that because in the landlord's mind, based on their portfolio, they only want 10%. So you're not going to be able to change that regardless of how amazing you might be. So find out what the true objection is and figure out if it's something that you can help the landlord change.
Yeah, that's good advice, and it's the same thing you would be talking about with a customer that's coming in and objects to a shared environment.
Right.
What's the objection?
Right.
It's consultative sales, right?
Yeah. Like, yeah, you got to figure out what the objection is. If I'm a female and I don't like short guys, it's not going to work, You know, it,
There's nothing wrong with short guys.
right. Yes, there's not. But I'm just saying, if that's her objection and you're, 4'8", there's no way around it. Just move on to the next one.
If a landlord's listening and they have some objections to co-working, they think it's going to devalue their building, how should they be thinking differently?
Well, I mean, it depends. So we've had landlords basically moved into their building. So let's say, for example, a building that's like 4 stories and we occupy a whole entire floor. And this actually happened during COVID where we were the only ones in the building. As time progressed, most of our tenants grew out of our space and then wanted other space, something bigger for themselves. And there's a location that we have, our Laurel location pretty much, where 80% of the tenants that are in the building are either our tenants or grew from us to become the landlord's tenant. That's the story that I always use for landlords, how we can add value to them and to their building.
To feeder.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's their top of funnel, potentially.
Yeah.
Chiko, with the landlords that you deal with, that you're the tenant with, which I want to come back to the tenant word in a moment, by the way. Are you finding that there's opportunities within the building for you to serve the building as well, outside of just feeding them future customers?
That's a conversation that we haven't started having with landlords. But yes, like our amenity spaces, like our conference rooms, our flex space, and things like that we provide, those are, if integrated well, those are things that other tenants in the building can use. Or even there's a couple locations where landlords have their own nicer conference room. Maybe we can manage that or something like that, or figure out a way to kind of integrate that. But yes.
Yeah, makes sense. And I think there's opportunities as well for operators to come in and run the front of house of the building, because often the landlord puts someone at the front desk that's kind of like a grumpy security guard. And
right.
You probably have a really bubbly person that's greeting people when they come in, and imagine them being the first experience people walk into the building. So I want to end on a word that you've used a lot today, and the word's tenant. And that word has been around our industry for a long time. Some would say hundreds of years, actually, if you go way back. In recent times, we've moved to start calling tenants customers. And then even further, some people say members. Do you object to customers, members? You prefer tenants, and why?
For us, we call our private office renters tenants. And then we call our non-private office renters members. I don't object to any. Doesn't really matter to me, just as long as you're paying your rent.
Which, by the way, when we had a call, ahead of this, I asked you one, and I'll ask this, I'll just maybe say this and you can elaborate. I asked you what the hardest part of this business is, and you said getting people to pay their rent. How do you manage that?
I think we manage that a couple different ways. One of the ways that we manage that is through a bonus incentive for our employees. So there's different levels of bonuses that our team members unlock when they reach different levels of rent collection. So I think I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned to you, but I don't really care about occupancy. Occupancy means nothing to me. Like you can be 100% occupied and 0% rent collected. So you can walk around and say, hey, I'm 100% occupied at my location, but it doesn't mean anything. So I always say that you want to count. I don't care about occupancy. I care about rent that you see. Okay. So our bonus structure is based on like rents that we actually collect. I think that motivates our team to be able to make sure that tenants are making their rent payments or in a position to make their rent payments. Whether it means like us helping them find more customers or us helping to show them how through the rental platform they can borrow money and pay their rent until they can, pay. So a whole bunch of different things, but we incentivize the team. Then the team has an incentive to make sure that the tenants pay their rent on time.
It's probably the hardest part about this business is, especially if you have the missionary and the mercenary together, is you want to support people like you used to be.
Yes.
But then you were a risky bet back then. It paid off for your landlord.
Paid off.
And I'm sure it pays off for you 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But that 1 time out of 10 becomes that conversation. Is it a difficult conversation to have when somebody isn't or can't pay? When you really want to support them?
Of course, it's a difficult conversation to have. And I think that's what separates the operators that are successful and the ones that are not. Or the operators that are in business and the ones that are not, because it's a hard conversation, especially when you lead with the missionary, right? And you go to a tenant and you ask them, you say, hey, look, you've done well these 2 months in terms of making your rent obligation, but on this 3rd month, you're not. Well, then the tenant reminds you, hey, I thought you were in this thing to save the whole world. So why are you bugging me about this one time I didn't pay rent? So that's what I'm saying. You have to balance it. They have to understand that this is a business, but at the same time, you will support them in ways that you can.
Chiko, thanks for sharing transparently your views on this and how you guys are operating, how you guys are growing, having success. Your missionary and mercenary blend, it's inspiring. And I think it's good for everybody to see that the fundamentals of this industry is sort of across the board. How we operate might be different, and there are different ways to do that. Really appreciate it, and I look forward to continuing being inspired by you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, and thank you for tuning in. Until next time, take care of yourself.